Another good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Self-Directed Saturday, hosted by Quest Trust Company. Today is a very special Saturday. We have a panel of experts, and I can't wait to introduce them. We have Glenn Stromberg, Tracy Z, and Jeff Watson. So we'll be asking the panel of experts some really exciting questions for you. But before we get started with them, I just have a few slides to share with you about Quest and tell you about a really exciting offer that we have going on. We are waiving the $100 account opening fee for Roth IRAs for another week. So make sure you are contacting your IRA specialist. I'll make sure I put that contact information in the comments box so you can get in touch with us of how to open your new Roth IRA for free. So here goes some just a few slides about Quest, and then we'll get right into the panel of experts. All right, so let's make sure we do this from the beginning. There we go. All right, so of course, thank you so much for joining us for Self-Directed Saturday. So who is Quest Trust and what do we do? So honestly, if you can tell by the two gentlemen in the back, Quest Trust was really started by Quincy and Nathan Long, two brothers that actually were in the self-directed industry as investors, and they created Quest Trust for the client experience that they were really looking for. So they really built a business for the client experience that they wanted. So we are now the largest self-directed IRA custodian in Texas. We have over 20,000 active investors across the country. So no matter where you are joining us from right now, we can help you. We have 2.1 billion with a B assets under administration right now. We are about 115 employees right now in Texas. We have offices in Houston, Dallas, and Austin. I am an IRA specialist, and there's about 35 of us in these offices to help you. We are very knowledgeable about IRAs and how they work, and we would be happy to help you. I'm glad to say that this number is 400 million in undirected cash or opportunities for you to invest. And of course, our disclaimer, this presentation, like all of our other ones, is for educational purposes only. We do not give any legal, tax, investing, structuring advice. This is for educational purposes only. We absolutely encourage you to do your own due diligence on any investments that you will be doing, making sure you're contacting your CPAs, your attorneys, and your financial planners before engaging and enter in the investments. So what is a self-directed IRA and why should you have one? So self-directed is honestly just a marketing term. So an IRA here at Quest is governed and legally the same IRA that you would have anywhere else. The difference is the custodian. We have an open architecture platform allowing you to invest in private assets as opposed to publicly traded assets. So that makes us, very different, just in one of the small ways that makes us very different. So some advantages of that is diversification. So not only can you invest in growing your portfolio, of course, this is another leg that you can add or another branch to the tree, if you will, in diversification. So now you can invest in private assets like real estate or promissory notes, or private entities like investing in private companies or multifamily syndications, things like that. Of course, the tax savings. We have some accounts that are tax deferred, meaning it grows tax free until you start taking funds out for retirement, or some that grow tax free, like the Roth IRA. We're running that great special on where we're waiving the $100 account fee. So make sure you get in touch with your IRA specialist. We are happy to tell you more about that. Social investing. You may be loaning money out to someone, improving their community by, improving the real estate in their community, or doing something like seller financing, where you're actually seeing improvement in your own community. So that's really amazing there. And of course, invest in what you know best. So if you're a realtor, or if you've done promissory notes before, or if you are into private stocks or oil and gas, this is where you really get to use your education to help save for your retirement. So great benefits there. Our client portal, we're really have done a lot of work on this. You can actually run your entire account without talking to a person at all, if that's really what you wanted. But of course, we were here to help. So you can pay the expenses from your IRA, upload all the documents, process your retirement investment, get all your tax statements, what have you. So make sure you check that out. Of course, our endless education. We have our weekly webinars, including our Self-Directed Saturday, our YouTube channel where this class is streaming live, as well as our other webinars that we've ever done. Those are all there, along with a plethora of other information on self-directed IRAs. Our website has another whole education center with our blogs, all kind of information there. And then of course, our virtual networking happy hour. If you're not in our Texas area, still a chance to network with all of our great Quest clients the first and third Wednesday of every month. I host a lot of those. I make it a lot of fun. So first and third Wednesday of every month, 6:30 Central, we would love to have you join us. And of course, Self-Directed Saturday. And for those of you in the Houston, Austin, or Dallas area, we are having in-person events. So you can see on the screen, Houston the first Tuesday, Austin the second Tuesday, and Dallas the third Tuesday of the month. Please come join us. We would love to see you in person. Come network, come see some other vendors, come get some education as well. We would love to have you. So how do you get in touch with us? We're actually very easy to get in touch with. Chat with us live on our website. It is actually run by us, the IRA and transaction specialist, not a robot. I get that question a lot. Give us a call. I love our phone numbers because we really do like to make this fun. We really love doing this. 855-FUN-IRAs, or contact us. Nicole.baco@questtrust.com is how to get in touch with me specifically, or the IRA specialist email in general is iraspecialist@questtrust.com. All right, that is quite enough for me. It is time to meet the panel of experts. All right, so if we can now bring on the panel of experts, we have Glenn Stromberg, Tracy Z, and Jeff Watson. So why don't you each take a minute to introduce yourselves? We'll just go in alphabetical order. So Glenn, we'll start with you.
Very good. Nicole, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. And yeah, I am based out of Fort Worth, Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We do business in 4 states, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and we have a specialty niche. We buy manufactured homes that are on acreage, normally a 1,500 to 2,000 square foot, double wide manufactured home on a half an acre to an acre tract of land. We buy them, we fix them up like new, we put a tenant in there. We keep half of them for ourselves. We turnkey half to our investors, and Quest has been a great partner. We've done hundreds of deals with Quest, and it's been wonderful to work with. And that's an overview of what we do.
Wonderful, thanks, Glenn. All right, Jeff, you're up.
Well, good morning. It's a privilege to be here. I am a licensed attorney in the state of Ohio. A lot of my practice is helping self-directed IRA account holders figure out how to do their deal, how to document it, how to paper it, how to do the due diligence on it, make sure it's right, make sure it complies with the applicable code sections and so on. I'm also a self-directed IRA investor, and I am also privileged and honored to be a member of the board of directors of Quest Trust Company.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And Miss Tracy Z.
Well, with a name like Z, I got to go last, right? That just makes sense. But I appreciate you having me here. I've been buying and selling seller finance notes since 1988. That's my specialty. I love the seller financing world. I started out in institutional land, as I like to call it, worked 10 years for a large institutional investor that invested a lot in seller finance notes, turned them into mortgage-backed securities. And then I left there, great education, wouldn't change it for anything. And I left there to buy and sell my own notes, start my own company with my husband. We've been doing that since 1997. And boy, do you get an education when you start using your own money instead of somebody else's.
Of course.
She is so right. She is so right.
So I love using a self-directed IRA as well. So we do deals inside and outside of the IRA, and I just consider myself an average investor that likes to play it safe. Even though I am playing in alternative assets, there's still ways to structure them so that they make sense deals, and there's lots of opportunity out there for people. So I'm glad to be here to share that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, all three of you, for being with us. I'm really excited to have all of you on the panel today. All right. Well, let's start with our questions. Let me bring up the banners. All right. So this one is kind of lengthy to start with, number one, but I guess instead of maybe 2 or 3 points, or however you really like to answer this question, but what are 2 or 3 points or strategies that have added to momentum or big leaps forward in your growth to reach where you are now that you could share? I can call on you like we're in school.
I'll go ahead and start. And I think there's 2 areas. There's 2 areas for me. Mastermind groups have been game changing for me, right? You know, I'm in several mastermind groups, both investor groups and real estate mastermind groups, and the education you get with the networking, your network does become your net worth and so forth. So it has been, you know, that's given me a lot of insight to see what people around the country are doing well, and I just copy them. I never have an original thought in my life, and I would say the other thing for me was, for us to scale, doing an entrepreneurial operating system, we went through the traction process, and that was huge for us. That allowed us to scale to other states, and so those are the 2 things that come to mind that were, you know, really made a difference and gave us momentum. So.
Well, I'll go. I think for me, it's getting comfortable understanding financial calculator. I'm a big proponent of compounding interest and understanding how to arbitrage, which when I heard that word, I was like, I don't know, I've been doing this business for at least 15 years. I'm like, what's arbitrage when it has to do with notes, right? Because you hear about the stock market and they're like, well, you know, you get one interest rate at 4 and you have cost of funds at 4 and you've got money coming in at 8. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, we know what that is. So it's just a fancy word for saying, hey, if you've got cost of funds that are lower than the money you're coming in. So I'm a big proponent of people understanding the time value of money, and you don't have to use the financial calculator I use, but you need to understand amortization and interest. And that's going to play into other questions we've got coming up, like wraps, subject twos. So how do you lock in low interest rates and then bring in money at a higher interest rate and make a spread, make cash flow? And so for me personally, using that concept with the partial purchase is probably one of the biggest wealth builder tools that we have implemented. And that's where you can buy a note and then sell off a note under a partial purchase agreement, not fractionalizing it, not creating a security, using really good documentation. And so you can recapitalize, you can actually get whole. And so if you got a 30-year note, maybe you sell off 15 years, you get whole and you keep 15 years on the back end. And those, you often get paid off much faster than 15 years because notes often pay off in 7 to 10 years. So it's just a really great strategy to use compounding interest.
Thank you, Tracy.
I'm going to sound like a broken record because they both are right. They're both exactly right. For me, it's relationships. When I learned that the relationships that I was creating were going to be very valuable this is the most important form of leverage I've ever learned how to use. The second thing is through a particular kind of note strategy that Tracy's already begun to describe, I learned how to make money on other people's money, and I learned how to make money on air. and Tracy's hands down done it 100 times more than I have, and I've learned so much from her. But those are the things that have just really added huge momentum and taken me big leaps forward is in my role as a self-directed IRA investor, and that's how I'm answering that question. I'm trying. I guess at the back end of the answer, I'm saying which hat I'm wearing when I'm talking about when I'm giving the answer. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. All right, let me get to this. All right. Here is our next one. How do you recognize opportunities to invest profitably? Kind of a broad question. So however you'd like to answer this one.
Does it make sense? Does it make sense can I reasonably explain it in 2 sentences where an 8-year-old would understand it? And do I understand both the risks and the rewards? And you notice I led with the risks rather than the rewards, because way too often we get attracted by the reward and we ignore the risks. And you always want to understand the risks and then decide, is the reward worth the risks?
Love that.
Yeah. I always ask myself, does it cash flow? And I like to know what kind of skin in the game the borrower, buyer, the person I'm looking to for payments has. And if that doesn't work out, how much I have invested compared to what the property is worth, because worst case scenario, I can take that back, get made whole after expenses, and fix up and start over again. So those are the 3 things that I really like to look at.
You know, they pretty much stole my thunder there. That's exactly right. I mean, it's risk return. It's analyzing the deal more specifically, like when we're looking at an individual property, right? Like we're wanting to make sure it cash flows. It's in a good area, good school district. Do people want to live there, so forth, and it's just doing the due diligence and do the numbers work, and what is the risk, what is the return, and make a good decision.
All right.
Hey, Nicole, I'd like to circle up on something Jeff said, because I heard him say this a little while back. And when he said, can you describe what you do so an 8-year-old understands it in 2 sentences? I'm bad about that. And ever since I heard Jeff say that, I think now about how I answer and how I describe things, because I want to go off into all these great, exciting tangents. And I'm like, that doesn't serve anyone. That just is for me, right? Because I'm excited about it. So how do I answer simplistically, not because people aren't smart, but they have a chance to digest and then ask more questions? So I have to thank Jeff for that, because it's changed how I answer questions in general.
I love that. I love that. And I'm the same. I'm like, I just want to tell you all this great information, but I love that. That's really a great point.
It is.
All right, guys. All right. There it is. One question that came up a lot during our QuestCon Live was the importance of due diligence. Can you share the due diligence practices you take when vetting, I need my glasses, when vetting a new deal or partner? Jeff, I know you've done a ton of due diligence webinars for us. Do you want to take this one first?
I'm going to say, folks, go watch some of the other stuff Quest's got on YouTube, where I've done due diligence, where Quincy's done due diligence, where Nathan Long's done due diligence, where Derek Long's done due diligence, and go back and watch it, because it is a day-long presentation in and of itself. Okay. And I will tell you this. I'm going to give you 2 real quick, hard, fast rules. Trust your gut. Don't listen to your greed gland. Trust your gut. And the second thing is always verify, then trust. Okay. And I mean, there's so many due diligence practices, because you've got to look at the paperwork, you've got to look at the parties, you've got to look at the property, you've got to look at the payment stream, you've got to look at everything else. There's so many things. So there's so many good trainings that Quincy and others have done. Go check them out on Quest YouTube channel.
So I got my start in this business being a due diligence person. I prepared the closing documents. We went through to make sure the file was ready to fund before I moved into actually investing. And so I come from the due diligence world, and I've taught a lot of people due diligence. And I will say, have a checklist. Don't rely on your memory. I've been doing this 30 plus years. I still have a checklist. You just go down the checklist and you check everything, and then you sit back and you look at the big picture to see if it makes sense. I play in the seller financing world. That means most of these deals, for some reason, didn't fit in a banker's box. Maybe it was the property, maybe it was the person, maybe it was the terms, maybe it's a hiccup in life. It could be all kinds of different things, but we have to make sense out of them and make sure that the risk and the reward are equal. And so the way you do that is you have a really good due diligence checklist, you follow it, and then you sit back and you do the gut check, just like Jeff was saying. Does this deal make sense? Or did the reasons this happen, what's going on here? And how do I compensate my structure of how I purchase it so I am safe in my investment?
And once again, going last, you guys nailed it. You guys nailed it, and so I'll take it in a little different direction. So for because obviously I do due diligence on the properties that we buy, and we have a checklist, and I always want a couple sets of eyes on it. We do a 10-day option period to make sure we dot our I's, cross our T's, all that stuff. But from an investor side, because I have a traditional IRA and a Roth, and by the way, you guys never didn't tell me to say this, but I was in this mastermind group with Quincy Long for 3 years, and he said, if there's anything you ever get from me is open a Roth, open a Roth, open a Roth. After 3 years, I go, man, I think he's right. And I opened a Roth, and that was like 7 years ago, and it's the greatest thing I ever did, because it's really been cool. But yeah, from an when I'm an investor, to me, it's number one, all about the operator, right? The integrity, the track record of the operator, and then what Jeff said, I trust my gut, right? Real estate, there's so many different areas to invest in real estate, and everybody's different. Everyone's got different boxes, different things they're comfortable with, and you just got to figure out where, what area of real estate you want to be in and why, and go after it. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, guys. All right, let's move right along. All right. So as a follow-up to that, what are some common red flags to look out for when you're doing due diligence on a deal you're really wanting to lend on as a lender?
I'll let Glenn go first since he was last on the last one.
And I said it just a minute ago. My main due diligence is who I'm doing business with. That's my main due diligence, right? I want someone I know, like, and trust. That's someone that, I don't have to worry about, right? I call it fewer betters. That's just the way that I do it. It's, when someone's offering me 20-something% returns, I'm doing super due diligence on that one. I want to really make sure that I understand that. And sometimes the old saying, if the deal's too good to be true, it's not true. Right. So, but yeah, that's the character of the operator. That's number one. If it is an asset, I do want to obviously check the asset. If something happens to where, they can't pay me, I want to make sure I'm going to get paid and I'm in good shape on the asset. So those are the main things I look for.
Perfect.
You go next, Jeff. I'll go last this time.
Okay. So when a client or I am being asked to fund the deal, there's a couple of things that we look out for that are really big red flags. If it has to close in a hurry.
Yep. That's good.
Man, all the warning bells and the red lights and the flags start waving. Because if it has to close in a hurry, that means some other lender didn't like it. And there's got to be a reason, and I want to know why. The second thing is, I'm always going to ask the borrower, tell me about the worst deal you've ever done. And if they can't tell me how they've screwed something up and then fixed it, I'm not interested. I'm not interested because they're either inexperienced or they're not telling me the truth. And either way, I'm not interested. If you'll come and tell me, hey, you know what? I got upside down on this deal and here's how I dug my way out of it. Okay, I like you a lot better. You've demonstrated a track record. Of course, I'm going to verify before I trust. But yeah, we're starting the right way. But if you're coming to me and you got to close that deal in the next 3 days, nope, sorry, not going to happen.
I do not lend money. I like to buy existing notes at a discount instead of lending money for points and fees. So I get interest rate and I get discount. And then I try to structure ways that it might pay off early as well. So for me, I'm looking at the 3 Ps, right? The people, the property, and the paperwork. But one of the big red flags for me is if somebody is bringing me a note and they're super sophisticated, because so many of our deals are owner finance and they don't do it all the time. They just do less than one a year. But if somebody's sophisticated, then they're doing a lot of these deals and they're smart enough to present something differently than maybe it is. And so I think some of the biggest red flags that always surprise me, people don't check, is like, go do a search on your seller. Do they have court cases against them? Have they been sued? Are they not paying people? Are they in the news? I mean, so we have Google, people. So just start
And
there.
Pacer and a few other sites. Yes.
Yes, and a few others. So I just sometimes like the very basic things. And if you're looking at a property, make sure that it's still standing and it's occupied and it's not boarded up. Very basic things. Is it insured? Are the taxes paid? Does the person who's selling you the note really own it? I mean, there's some definite red flags in there that are very basics that I see sometimes in people getting excited. Don't go check.
All right. Thanks, guys. We're getting some audience questions, but they kind of relate to some questions that we're bringing up. So I'm going to change the order of the questions. So I think it's going to tailor some more there. So I'm going to ask this question, and I think it's going to tie into some more of the audience questions that we're getting. So we're going to start with this one. So how can investors use Roth conversions as a wealth building strategy? And for those who may not know, in what way are Roth conversions at risk at the moment?
Okay. I'm going to try and hit this quickly and then leave lots of time for Tracy and Glenn. A Roth conversion initially is not a wealth building strategy because it does trigger a taxable event. But you're taking one step back by paying the tax on the conversion in order to get 10 steps forward tax-free in the future. So if you've got an opportunity to convert right now and you need to seize it. You need to take that opportunity. You just got to do it because you'd rather pay tax on the seed than on the harvest. Now, if you're not going to be investing aggressively and if you're going to be putzing along at a 6 or 7% annualized rate of return, then a conversion is probably not going to make a lot of sense for you. But if you're going to start making the rates of return that a lot of other folks are making, double digits and so on, you need to do that conversion. The next thing is, in what way are Roth conversions at risk at the moment? Well, there's this horrible bill called the Build Back Better Boondoggle Bill. I added an extra B to it. That's just my personalization. And if you don't know anything about that bill, then you need to seize the amazing stuff that Quest Trust was involved with, battling some of the horrible provisions in that bill and the success that we've had. But where we are right now is the House of Representatives has narrowly passed a bill that is going to limit Roth conversions for people with a high income, and 10 and 11 years from now, phase it out completely. Right. And that is, that's only the House has passed it. I don't think that bill's got a chance to make it through the Senate. I do not see that bill moving this year. And then that bill is going to need a significant rewrite because the calendar year is going to roll over. So we'll have to watch, wait, and see. But I'm going to tell you this. The shrewdness with which they've baked in the 10-year sunset on Roth conversions tells you that the IRS knows that they make a pile of money off of investors converting traditional to Roth, because traditional IRAs, to quote the famous Mr. Ed Slott, are tax infested. That's infested as in with vermin, roaches, taxes, things like that. Because the tax bill coming due on traditional IRAs is horrendous. And so converting is a wealth building strategy. The sooner you do it, the better. Sorry I went so long.
I'm glad you did, because you're much too modest. You fought so hard, Jeff, and getting that so many things changed in that bill. And I know a lot of people, you shared great information that we could use to also lend our voice. And so thank you for that. And we are all hopeful that it doesn't pass. But if it does, we will all carry on some way, some shape, form. But you're right. Why don't we just take advantage of it now while we can? And I know Quest has got a great opportunity. What, you've got free Roth IRA accounts this month?
Yes, we are waiving the Roth opening fee for Roth accounts, so you can open them for free for at least the next week.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and once again, I want to echo that. Jeff, you did a fantastic job. Quest did, American Association of Private Lenders, and so forth. And I was part of
John Heyer. John Heyer had an amazing website.
John Heyer
that was, Yeah.
He nailed it. He did fantastic. But, you know, it was interesting because I was on one of the groups that we talked to the Senate, and they didn't realize the damage that the reg, you know, if they would have got rid of Reg D was going to do. They didn't understand it, right? So I think it's going to be a continuous fight too. So it's something that we're going to have to stay on top of and so forth. But, you know, as far as the Roths go, and I've heard this said many times. I mean, do you think in the future taxes are going to go up or go down? And we're 30 trillion in debt and climbing rapidly. And there's things happening in America I never thought I'd see. I never thought I'd see some of the stuff happening. So, you know, I've already said my view on a Roth is a tremendous, you know, wealth building strategy. And I've strategically the last 7 years rolled over my money from the traditional to the Roth, and have, you know, once again, real estate, if you've got the tax advantages those years, you can do more and so forth. And so, I think people, if I had one bit of advice to everybody on this call, it's exactly what Quincy Long told me. If you do anything, open a Roth. Yeah, if you don't hear anything else, open up a Roth. And I believe that. So
I only like one thing better than a Roth, and that is an HSA that's self-directed, right?
Those are sweet. Yes, they are, Tracy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to take that question off. Let's see. I know it's a lot of. All right. Hide that one. Let me find the one from the audience.
I'm just glad you're doing it because I'd make a complete mess of it, Nicole.
It's taken me a while to figure out StreamYard. I will not.
But we got Juan in the background. We're good.
Thank
We're all
goodness
good.
for our Juan Rivas. He is amazing, and I could not do this without him. And
It was so good to see him yesterday. It's just so good to see him yesterday.
Okay.
Oh.
I know. So this is a very broad question. If the act is passed, how will it affect self-directed IRAs? Now, I know this answer could be extremely long because it could affect them in so many ways, but I guess maybe in the
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll hit it.
You're the attorney. You're the one that should do this one. Yes, I agree.
Well, okay. So here we go, Harry. What a question, man. Here you're going to get it. The fire hose is going to get cracked open, buddy. If the act is passed, how will it affect self-directed IRAs? When you say the act, I assume you're referring to the Build Back Better boondoggle bill, which is also referred as a reconciliation act in order to get it through the Senate based upon parliamentarian rules because of the way the Senate's 50-50. The current House version, as of the draft version November 3rd, 2021, that has been passed by the House of Representatives, will have some impact on self-directed IRAs. But the big two ugly death traps have been pulled out of it because of the massive work that was been done by a huge amount of people. Yes, I got a chance to go to Washington, D.C. and FaceTime with some members of Congress and get them to agree to pull it. That's only because people had been doing what John Hyde had been saying, only the Peace Bill had been doing from all sorts of arrangements, just pounding their senators and particularly their congressmen on that issue. And they were like, oh, you mean if we pull this out, we're going to stop getting the phone calls? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, we're pulling it. So that's where we are. Now, will it still impact self-directed IRAs? Yeah, because it's going to cap them at $10 million. It's going to do a few other things. It's going to sunset when you can do conversions. It's going to eliminate Roth conversions for people with high income. It's going to do those things. But the worst thing about it is this, and the best thing about it is this at the same time. It's shown us that Congress has an insatiable appetite for money, and they've recognized how much money is in the IRA space, and they're starting to nibble on the edge of this giant pool of money in IRAs. And once they start nibbling, they're going to want to keep coming after it. That's the bad thing. The good thing is self-directed IRAs have got a seat at the table. And if you're not on the table in Washington, D.C., you're getting freaking carved up. Okay? And we leverage the relationships from the Seller Finance Coalition that Tracy's been helping, Eddie Speed, Bob Repass, Glenn, you've been there, so many others, Quest, Kingdom Trust, Equity Trust, a bunch of other people have been there. We leverage that relationship to go fight this on self-directed IRAs. And now they know we're there. We've planted our flag. And there are members of Congress that flat out know if you're going to go after self-directed IRAs, you're going to hear from Jeff Watson, you're going to hear from John Hyre, and you better have a really good answer as to why you're messing with them. Right. And so that's where we are. And that's not a one-person, two-person show. That is hundreds and thousands of investors who made phone calls, sent letters, sent emails, made faxes, did things like that, all saying, get your hands off my IRA.
I have
So
nothing.
did I answer the question, Harry? I don't know. I hope so.
That was good.
All right. I'm going to kind of combine a few other questions that I've had. So also in pieces of the bill, like they are saying, like, so backdoor conversions, or the classic, the true backdoor is where you're making your after-tax contribution into the traditional IRA, filing the 8606, and then it's a non-taxable contribution, conversion into the Roth IRA, versus the pre-tax or just the traditional IRA to the Roth IRA, and then it's a taxable conversion. So because I know pieces of the bill are like, there's no backdoor, there's no after-tax backdoor conversions, but there's a few pieces that are like, well, it doesn't really address the pre-tax conversions. Do y'all want to just touch briefly on that for the?
I'm going to just give it a lick and a prayer and move on.
Okay.
Congress doesn't know what they're going to do with this yet.
Okay.
They're still tinkering with the bill. And we have no idea what the Senate's going to do. And so we're going to be watching. If this bill starts to move in the Senate, we're going to be watching it like a hawk to see what version they pass. Do they pass the November 3rd version, which is, it's not good, but it's not bad. I mean, I don't like it,
Right.
but it's not death. Okay. It's like a bitter cup of coffee instead of a great cup of hot tea. Okay. I'll leave it at that. And by the way, I love tea and I hate coffee. So that's why I use that analogy. So we'll have to wait and see. They're going after, and you see, they're playing the class warfare game. And they're just segmenting Americans based upon what your adjusted gross income is, or what your modified adjusted gross income is. And if you make over 400,000, if you're married filing jointly, then you can't do certain things. If you make over so much, if you're single and so on, you can't do certain things. And it's discriminatory based upon income. And I think that's illegal. I think that's reprehensible. I also think it's very bad public policy to limit how people save for their retirement. That's just, you're impoverishing a society, which is only going to just lead to the downfall of the society. So anyhow, I'll stop ranting and raving there. We're going to have to wait and see. So don't go to sleep on this thing. Don't go to sleep on this thing. If you get an email from Quest, you better read it, because Quest is going to tell you what's going on. And I'm going to tell you right now, Quest is not going to send out some vanilla, soap soft, mamsy-pamsy email about what's happening like some other custodians did and they got yelled at for it. Quest is going to tell you what it is, and the Quest is going to tell you how to go do it and what to do about it. And so read those emails.
All right. All right. For now, I think we're going to leave the bill alone, and we're going to move into some other topics.
Y'all got me fired up. I'm sorry, but you got me fired up.
I know, but we have some other topics that people are asking about, some other topics here. But because I know we could talk about the bill the whole
Yeah, well, it's a sleepy Saturday morning for me, so this has got me going. This has got all the synapses now firing.
I know, and we might go back to the bill at the end. We'll just never know.
Okay,
so
all right.
Let's move on to this, and then not that one. Here it is. All right. So some other questions that have been asked kind of in the comments ties into this as well. So do you think future inflation will create problems on alternative investments, including notes, because that was specifically asked, in 2022? And how should self-directed IRA investors stay ahead of these risks?
Well, look, notes aren't appreciating, right? They amortize down, so their balance gets smaller. The underlying collateral, like the real estate, might appreciate, but you only get that back if they don't pay. And let me tell you, it's not the ones that you want back that you ever get back. It's never the properties you're like, oh, I wouldn't mind owning that one. That's not the one you get back, okay? Been doing this long enough. It just works out that way. So I get that notes, and I get this question a lot. I've been getting this question a lot. So notes don't appreciate like some assets. So when you've got inflation and things are the costs are going up, what do? You try to invest in things that outpace inflation. Well, certainly hard assets like real estate right now are outpacing that. Some people would argue some stocks, some crypto. I think that's a different conversation. I don't like that personally because I can't control it. It's just like Vegas money to me. But notes we can control, real estate we can control. So maybe there's some argument back and forth to put some in real estate and some in notes. I still love notes. I will remind everybody that the notes that we buy and the discounts we get and the interest rate we get is far outpacing the inflation at the current rate. It has far outpaced inflation for the 30 years I've been doing this, except for in the mid 80s. And I got started in 88. So we would have to get pretty high inflation and pretty high interest rates for the kind of investments we do to not outpace inflation. I have some more comments on this. I'm going to save them, let the other people on the panel speak, and then if they don't say them, I'll circle back around on it.
Okay. And I'm very biased here because we structure our whole model based on this really. We've seen in the last 7 years a lot of our properties have doubled. I mean, they've doubled in value. We've had crazy appreciation around the country, and I think inflation, it's, the government's printing money, trillions and trillions and trillions. It's not going away. And I think, matter of fact, the government admits, I think 6.9% on the CPI last year. But I think the real inflation rate was 14%. There's a guy named John Williams, Shadow Stats, that he every time the government, there's something that gets too high, they throw it out of the CPI because they don't want to pay it for Social Security, right? So I think the real inflation rate was 14% last year. And so, the other thing that I like about owning assets, right? Number one, I always say this: no matter how bad things get, people are going to eat first, have a roof over their head second, and if you have an affordable roof, you're in good shape. But the real beauty is the appreciation is growing tax deferred, right? You're not paying taxes as it grows. You're getting cash flow depreciation. If it's outside, if it's not non-IRA money, you're getting depreciation. So I think that's a great way to build wealth and to fight inflation. So that's my take.
Okay, I'm going to be short because I want to hear what Tracy has to say. But I got a couple of things. I knew this inflation question was coming because just like everybody else, we've been getting it all the time. Do you think inflation will create problems on alternative investments in 2022? Yes, but I also would take the word problems out and I'd shove the word opportunities in there. I think inflation is going to create opportunities on alternative investments in 2022. What should the self-directed IRA investor do to stay ahead of these risks? I'm going to flip it around on you. Imagine owning a portfolio of rental properties in New York, California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, and you've had tenants in those properties now for 20 months and not gotten a dime in rent. I don't think inflation is your biggest problem.
That's right.
Government is your biggest problem. And I don't think that a rental property where you got a tenant that can squat in it legally for 20 months and not pay rent is an asset. So I think you've got to really look at a whole host of things. And I'm getting out of communist Cleveland, Ohio. I'm getting out of it. I'm selling my stuff and I'm moving to a tertiary market in the Northeast Ohio where there's actually a housing court judge that will actually look at the federal court law and go forward with evictions, where I've done evictions during COVID. Because I am not playing in Cleveland, Ohio anymore. Sorry, I'm out. Peace. Tracy, did I leave you any time?
Well, I like what you said because I am still going to buy notes. I'm going to make sure that I lock in low cost of funds wherever I can right now, because while inflation's going up, our interest rates are still low. So there is an opportunity. I think there are lots of notes out there that will get wrapped or subject to that have low interest rates that we can charge higher interest rates. I think, yes, we need to be sensitive to the fact that inflation's going up and we need to get higher returns. But I'm going to play devil's advocate and say higher returns also come with higher risk. And you have to realize you have to protect your gains as much as get gains. So if you had $100 and you made $150, you got a 50% increase. But do you know it only takes you 33% loss to get back down to 100? So we need to celebrate protecting our capital as much as we celebrate the gains. And my concern is people are going to get a little wacky and what they think they need to do, drunk on yield, right? Or Eddie Speed loves to use that term. They're going to get a little wacky on they've got to keep up with inflation. They've got to do these deals. They've got to sell this off. And they're not going to protect their capital. And in the chasing of that higher yield, they're going to have losses and not protect their gain. So I don't know. I've been doing notes, slow and steady wins the race.
I love that slow and steady wins the race. Amen. Amen. Glenn?
Yeah, I want to say one more thing, what you said, Jeff, and and I hear this once again, the mastermind groups I'm in, there's people all over the country, men and women all over the country, right? And it's one of my due diligence things. I want to be in red states, not blue states. It's night and day whether you're evicting, foreclosing, the climate's there. You know, I was born and raised in the Chicago area. I wouldn't do nothing up there for nothing. It can take years to get people out of houses up there and stuff. So I think it's really important where you do business too. So,
and I would avoid blue counties in red states.
Absolutely.
Cuyahoga County is a blue county in a red state. I'd avoid it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my friends that are Democrats, and folks, I'm going to tell you what, I give a lot of money to certain Democrat politicians. So don't think I'm bashing them. Okay. I've given a lot of money to Democrats in the last year. And they're moderates, and they're telling me they're getting hit on both sides. And so don't think I'm making it a political thing. I'm making this is a policy issue that affects how you're going to take care of your family and your grandkids in the future. And so pay attention. This is not me personally bashing anybody. This is just me commentating on the trend, and you got to watch out where you're going.
Well, I'm curious from the people on the panel, are you looking at doing anything differently in your investments due to inflation? I mean, I'm doing some things differently because I do recognize inflation is real. I'm just curious, what are you guys doing? Are you planning ahead on anything?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Well, I was going to say real quick. Yeah, we want to hold more assets in the next couple of years. Okay, because we think that's going to be an inflation hedge. A hard asset is will go up and down with inflation. So that's our company plan is to hold more assets the next couple of years.
Assets being hard assets, not notes.
Hard assets, properties we buy. Affordable housing. That's our market. So yeah.
So I'm doing a bifurcated strategy right now with my small portfolio. One of the things I'm doing is I'm taking the uptick in the market to get rid of the problem dogs in my portfolio. And if I can manufacture a paper loss to offset earned income somewhere else, I'm doing it. And I've got a couple of deals I've pulled off this year. I'm going to close one more this year that's going to do that. The other thing I'm doing is I am shifting as much capital as I can into lower risk, quality properties that I can evict tenants from if I have to. And I'm holding on to that. And then I could be crazy, I could be nuts, but I'm taking a slice off of both ends of my portfolio, and some of it's going into precious metals and some of it's going into crypto. And I'm not going big time into either of those things, but I'm going 5-8% each way.
Yeah. We started doing crypto this year too, because it's like, well, it's not going anywhere. Now I look at it like my Vegas money, not my grocery money. That's my advice to everybody, which is sort of funny because I don't gamble in Vegas anyways, but I guess I'm going to call it my vacation money instead of my grocery money, because I don't feel like I can control it, but there's no denying where it's run away to. And then it goes down and up and down and up. But that is definitely that. Commodities, there's other areas that that will keep going if the inflation keeps going.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I'm 10% precious metals, gold and silver. I think it's a hard asset. It will adjust to the currency. It always does. It does in other countries, and when currencies, and this is kind of I don't mean to be a downer here, but this is kind of a scary thing that in the history of currencies, fiat currencies, every one of them goes to zero. That's been proven over time, which is scary. And I'm afraid what the dollar is doing right now. So I look at precious metals. I'm probably 10% precious metals, and I do some crypto too. That's my high risk bucket, in my portfolio. So I look at that as my high risk bucket. So
there you go, folks.
All right, awesome, guys. Moving right along. All right, hide that one. All right, where are we going next? Where is it? All right. Another topic, and this kind of came up in the comments too, interested in how to get involved with wrap notes. Can you explain this, how this investment works and how to get started in self-directed IRA?
Tracy, why don't you take this one? You've done more wraps than anybody else.
Okay, I'm going to see if I learned my Jeff Watson lesson of trying to answer in a short, concise manner. Because wraps are complex. So a wraparound is when, say, I have a property and I'm going to sell it to Jeff, and I still owe money to Bank of America. So I can sell or finance it to Jeff. Jeff makes a payment to me, and I make my payment to Bank of America. That would be a wraparound, also called an all-inclusive trust deed. There are ways to structure those that can make them very profitable. That's a simple wrap. There's lots of complex wraps. You can have mirror wraps and double wraps and subject to wraps and all kinds of things, but that's the basic premise. One payment comes in on one mortgage, it wraps around, and the person makes the payment to the underlying. They can be great money-making opportunities if you think about interest arbitrage. If I'm getting in 9 and I'm paying 3, that's a nice little spread there, right? Just on the pure numbers. Now you can do other things. You can buy properties at a discount and structure a wraparound when you resell it. That's another way. So now you're building in equity and you've got interest arbitrage. Most of the notes I see, probably about 60% of them, when the seller comes to us, they still owe money that when they sold the property, they owed it to an underlying bank loan. So the most common thing that most note investors do is, out of the proceeds of purchasing that note, they pay off that underlying. So that wraparound becomes first position and the underlying is gone. My argument would be every one of those is an opportunity to just buy the net cash flow and lock in that lower cost of funds, get into the deal with less money up front. It's also a strategy. I know Jeff is near and dear to his heart, and you can use with subject twos, right? It's another way you can use the subject twos. So I'll leave that for Jeff to talk a little bit about. But wrap notes are great. They also have problems. They have problems in that people get their payment and they don't pay the bank. Problem number one. Don't do that, people. That's wrong. It's unethical. It's illegal. And so we always say, set up servicing so that when the one payment comes in, the payment goes to the underlying. I like to go one step further. I like to front load a payment on that underlying. So I'm not worrying about if the payment comes in on time. I want that underlying to get made on time. I want it to be ahead. I want it to be current. I want the person who's still legally obligated on that mortgage on the underlying to be getting the greatest credit boost in their lifetime, because that thing is paid ahead and paid current and paid on time. So, excuse me, that's one thing when we talk about wraps, I want people to walk away with is like, that's number one. You got to protect that underlying.
Yep. So I'll hit it quickly and then let Glenn clean it all up. I love doing wrap lending where I co-lend IRA monies that wrap another loan being made at the same time to a borrower. And my IRA profits on an interest rate difference and usually scrapes off some of the points and so on. And those work very well. So I co-lend out of a self-directed IRA account that wraps another loan being made at the same time. That's a pretty simple one. And, like somebody needs $100,000 and co-lender will lend 80 and I'll lend 20. And co-lender is going to make 8% and the borrower's paying 11. And so then I catch 3% on their 80 and I get 11% on my 20. And it boosts my rate of return to nice double digits with a crooked number at the front end of the double digits.
Like it.
Yeah, and this is really not my area of expertise, but I will throw this out. Like, we have investors that will buy properties from us on a turnkey, right? Then they'll bring in an investor and do a note. They're making the arbitrage money. They're making $300-400 a month with no money out of their pocket, and then they rinse and repeat and do that. That's what they do. And so, you think about this. There's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a whole bunch of people. I mean, Nicole, how much money did you say Quest has sitting in cash? 400 million or something?
400 million for opportunities out there.
That number blows me away, which is probably making 0.000 something %. 5%, right? And so, and like we'll run into people that have substantial dollars that's sitting in the bank. They don't want to put in the stock market. They don't know what to do with it, right? And you pay them 4 or 5%, they're happy as all 6%. They're happy as all get go, and then you can arbitrage that and create a win-win. That's what the whole thing is. Create a win for them, create a win for us, and make everybody happy. So that's what I'd add.
Love it. All right. As we're getting closer to the end, guys, I know I wanted to put your contact information in the comments if that works for you.
Sure.
Yes, please.
All right,
Thank
Miss
you.
Tracy, I'll start with you. All right, let me write. I'm not typing right today at all. All right, Miss Tracy Z, what is your contact information?
Tracy, TRACY at noteinvestor.com.
That's not how you spell Tracy at all. Tracy Z
at noteinvestor.com.
Noteinvestor.com. God, I've got to find my glasses. Note. That's not it. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties.
No problem.
Investor.com.
Oh, no Z in it. Just Tracy at noteinvestor.com. But that's all right. We'll figure it out. It's all good.
Tracy at noteinvestor.com. All right, Mr. Glenn.
Mine is Glenn with 2 N's, GLENN at stromberginvestmentgroup.com. It's kind of long. We tried to get SIG, but it was already taken, so we couldn't.
That's okay.
And then we have a website, www.stromberginvestmentgroup.com. It's got a lot of information in there too.
Investors.com?
It's stromberginvestmentgroup.com.
Ah,
yes.
Investmentgroup.com. Mr. Watson.
WatsonInvested.com. WatsonInvested, all one word.com. That is the best way to find my stuff and get a hold of me.
All right. I think I got everybody in there. All right. I have a question left. Why does that say error occurred? Okay. I'm going to do it one more time to make sure everybody can get to Jeff. WatsonInvested.com.
Yeah, you got it. It's good.
It said error occurred, so I wanted to make sure that it worked. All right. So I have one more question, guys. All right. Final words of advice for investors as they move into 2022. Whoever wants to take it first, or you can pretend like we're in school and I can call on you.
All right, I'll jump real quick and I'll try
Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, I'll jump fast here. My take is, and I want to be the first to say I've been wrong for 3 years. Okay, I thought something was going to happen 3 years ago, so I'll lay my cards on the table. But it's just crazy. The environment is just crazy out there. The government's printing money like crazy. To me, it's a good time to play defense. Personally, I love the affordable housing space because of what I said earlier. People have to have a roof over their head, and be, and once again, I'd be very cautious of what you're doing, how you're doing it, doing it like we talked about in the right places and so forth. So, because I just, my gut tells me something's coming, and just you want to be prepared for it when it happens. So,
Love it.
My final words of advice for investors as they move into 2022 is this: be the third pig. Be the third pig.
Love that.
Be that pig that
like
built the brick house, that when the big bad wolf came and blew, nothing bad happened.
that's good.
You can charge rent to your siblings that are running in for shelter, and you can withstand the storms. You got to be the third pig. Make sure you've got margin. Remember this, Tracy said it earlier, and I so agree with it. Slow and steady wins the race. And the last thing, and I'm redundant now when I say this, make sure that every month you're consistently putting money into your Quest Trust accounts through consistent monthly contributions. Yep.
I love that.
Right?
One.
Yep, that's good. So Jeff gave a great presentation, a whole presentation on being the third pig. It was fantastic. I loved it. So I believe you should practice the 3 C's: continuous, compounding, cash flow. So keep your money continuously invested. Make sure it cash flows, make sure it compounds, and practice the very first rule of compounding. So, there's a first rule of Fight Club, right? So the first rule of compounding is never, ever interrupt it unnecessarily. Now, I did not come up with that. Charles Munger, somebody with Berkshire Hathaway, maybe you heard that, right? Says that. And that is a really important quote. And people interrupt it in so many ways. And I have been guilty with this. I'll get a payoff on a note and I don't get out there and get it reinvested right away. Oh, I just interrupted my compounding. Suffering a loss. Oh, you just interrupted your compounding, right? So not making your contribution that you could make to your IRA, you're not capitalizing on your compounding. So really practice that. The 3 C's: continuously, compounding, cash flow.
Can I say one more thing real quick? Because I totally agree with that 100%. And I'm hearing a lot of investors say now, well, I want to sit on cash and wait for when something happens, right? Well, last year, if you sat on cash, you lost 14%. Okay, your money went back 14%. So I totally agree. Stay invested and invest in the right things, the things you're comfortable with. But sitting on cash, I think, is a fool's game. That's what I think.
Amazing from all of you. Those are just really wonderful points. And I love the third pig, Jeff. That's great. And the loss compounding, Tracy, that's phenomenal. So thank you all so much. Thank you to our amazing panel of experts for being here with us this Saturday. Thank you to everybody that was able to join us on StreamYard, on YouTube, on Facebook. And thank you so much to Juan Rivas for helping us keeping this all together in the technology. So everyone have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Saturday. Thank you for joining us again. And we will see you next Saturday at noon Central. Everybody have a great weekend.
Y'all
Peace. Lots of now.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Have a great Saturday.
You too, Nicole. Great job. And hey, Tracy and Jeff, great being with you guys. Seriously, enjoyed it. Really did.
Same.
Yep. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.